The elders' warning in the deepest corners of the galaxy, beyond the reach of most civilizations. The elders gathered in their ancient council. These beings were older than time itself, and their wisdom stretched beyond the stars. They had seen countless empires rise and fall, and through it all, they had waited for this moment. The moment when humanity would finally take its place among the stars. But what they saw troubled them. The humans, a young and seemingly insignificant species, were on the verge of an incredible transformation. The elders had long foretold that one day humans would become a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, but now it was happening faster than even they had imagined. And no one was ready for it. The council chamber was dimly lit, the walls covered in ancient symbols that pulsed with an eerie glow. The elders sat in a circle, their faces hidden in shadow as they watched the star maps unfold before them. Their fingers traced the paths of human ships, now moving rapidly through space, each one carrying more advanced technology than the galaxy had ever seen. "This is not what we predicted," said one elder, his voice deep and filled with unease. His glowing eyes, normally calm and steady, now flickered with concern. "You are right," replied another elder, her voice smooth but filled with tension. "They are advancing too quickly. We have only warned them for so long. Our time is running out." The first elder leaned forward, his hands trembling as he pointed to a distant star system on the map. "Look at this. The humans have discovered weapons, powerful, dangerous weapons. They are not ready for this. No one is." The room fell silent as the others studied the data before them. The humans, with their unrelenting curiosity and ambition, had found ways to bend the universe to their will. They had unlocked the secrets of energy, technology, and war in ways that none of the galaxy's most advanced species could have imagined. "Are they truly the threat we feared?" asked another elder. "Perhaps they are just children playing with fire. They may burn themselves out before they ever pose a danger." But the first elder was not convinced. "No," he said firmly, "this is not a game to them. Their determination, their will, it is like nothing we have ever seen. They are driven by something far deeper than any other species in this galaxy. And they are not going to stop." He paused for a moment, allowing the weight of his words to settle in. The others exchanged worried glances, their ancient minds struggling to comprehend what this would mean for the future. "We have watched them for centuries," the second elder said, her voice quiet but resolute, "and we have seen their rise. They have the power to destroy, yes, but they also have the power to build, to create. They could reshape the entire galaxy. But what if they create more than they can control?" the third elder asked, his voice shaky. "What if they destroy themselves first?" "We must warn the galaxy," the first elder declared. "The warning is simple. Humanity is unstoppable. No one listens, but they will have to." A heavy silence fell over the room as the gravity of his words echoed in the minds of all present. The elders knew the power that humanity was about to wield. The galaxy had long underestimated them, dismissing humans as a minor species, one easily crushed under the weight of centuries of history. But the elders understood the truth. Humans were different. They had something that no one else had: a deep, burning desire to conquer, to understand, and to expand beyond the stars. The first elder's eyes gleamed with a mix of fear and awe. "We have watched empires fall," he said, his voice low. "But this is something else. The humans will not only rise, they will shatter the very foundations of everything we know. And if we do not act now, we may not have the chance to stop them." Another elder, older than the rest, stood slowly, and yet, he began, "even as we speak, they continue to grow. The human ships are already beyond what we expected. The technology they possess could change the very balance of power in this galaxy." The first elder nodded gravely. "We must not wait for them to turn on us. We must warn the other species before it is too late." But despite their best efforts, the galaxy would not listen. The leaders of the Galactic Council laughed off the elders' warnings, thinking them to be the ramblings of old, tired beings. "Humans are no threat," they said. "They are too small, too inexperienced. They will never stand against us." But the elders knew better. They had seen countless species rise and fall, and they had learned the hard truth: never underestimate humanity. The first elder looked at the others, a fierce determination in his eyes. "They will be unstoppable," he said again, "and when they reach the stars, they will remember who warned them. But by then, it will be too late." And so, as the galaxy ignored their warnings, the elders could only watch as humanity prepared to take its place among the stars, unaware of the incredible power they were about to unleash. The countdown had already begun. The first science galaxy had always been a place of vast power and ancient civilizations, where the strongest ruled and the weak were forgotten. Yet, as the elders had predicted, humanity was not like the others. What began as small, insignificant ships exploring the stars soon turned into something far greater. These were not mere explorers, these were harbingers of a new age. It all began with the arrival of a single human ship in the far reaches of the galaxy. At a star system where no one had ventured for centuries, the ship was nothing special by Galactic standards, barely larger than a merchant freighter. Its hull was aged, painted in dull colors, and its technology appeared primitive. But there was something strange about it. Its trajectory was calculated, precise, as though the crew knew exactly where they were going. And why not the inhabitants of the star system, a peaceful race of scholars known as the Vaulter, watched with curiosity as the human ship approached their homeworld? They had no idea what to expect. But they knew one thing for certain: humans had never ventured this far before. The Vaulter had once been at the height of galactic influence. But their civilization had faded long ago, their technology outpaced by the more aggressive empires. A delegation of Vaulter scientists and diplomats welcomed the humans with open arms. They saw this as an opportunity to make contact with a new species, a way to restore some of the old glory of their people. But what they didn't expect was the sudden shift in power. As the humans disembarked, it became clear that they were not just explorers, they were determined, confident, and very different from the Vaulter. The humans began to speak of their great achievements, how they had created their own energy sources, unlocked the secrets of space travel, and even harnessed the power of their minds in ways that no other species could even fathom. They spoke not with the humility of explorers, but with the pride of conquerors. The Vaulter were fascinated, but there was something unsettling about the humans. The way they looked at the stars, as if they were simply the next stepping stones in their path. There was no awe, no reverence for the vast unknown. They saw it all as theirs for the taking. The Vaulter, once the rulers of their own destiny, suddenly felt like a forgotten relic in the face of this young, audacious species. The humans' arrival had not gone unnoticed. In the galaxy's heart, the Council of Galactic Leaders convened. In response to these strange newcomers, most of them dismissed humanity as a passing curiosity, a fleeting blip in the grand scheme of things. They had watched countless species rise and fall, each one more powerful and more capable than the last, only to be forgotten by time. But a few voices, including those of the elders, raised in alarm. Humanity was different. The ships they had sent were not like any others. They had been made to endure, to survive in the harshest of conditions, to push beyond the limits of what was thought possible. Still, the council dismissed their warnings. Humanity is too young, they scoffed. Their technology is primitive compared to our own. They are not a threat. Let them explore. They will never stand against us. And so, humanity continued its expansion. One by one, they made contact with species across the galaxy, offering alliances, sharing knowledge, and sometimes even offering help in exchange for resources. Their ships became more advanced, their technology rapidly evolving with each new world they encountered. Their reputation grew at first as curious explorers, then as formidable allies, and soon as rivals to the greatest powers of the galaxy. The first sign that humanity was not what the galaxy had assumed came during a trade negotiation with the Araka, a fierce warrior race known for their prowess in battle. The Araka were skeptical of the humans, seeing them as weak and unworthy of their attention. But when the human envoy offered a demonstration of their weapons, the Araka were stunned. The humans presented a small, unassuming device no larger than a wristband that could generate an energy field so powerful that it tore through the Araka's most advanced armor like paper. The Araka were left in shock, unable to comprehend how such a simple device could possess such devastating power. Humanity had not only demonstrated their technological superiority but had shown the galaxy that they were capable of anything. And that was just the beginning. Over the next few months, humanity's influence spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Their technology, which once seemed primitive, now appeared revolutionary. They did not rely on brute force alone. They combined intellect, creativity, and an unyielding drive to outsmart their opponents. The galaxy's leaders, still dismissing the elders' warnings, were now beginning to see the potential threat, but it was too late to stop humanity's rise. In the hidden corners of the galaxy, the elders watched with growing concern. They knew the galaxy's leaders would be slow to react, but the truth could no longer be ignored. Humanity was building its empire not through conquest alone, but through innovation and sheer willpower. They were unstoppable. The galaxy's fate now rested on the decisions made by those who had once laughed off the elders' warnings. Time was running out, and humanity's unstoppable rise was already well underway. The question was no longer whether humanity could be stopped, it was whether the galaxy could survive the storm they were about to unleash. A sudden shift as the months passed. Humanity's presence in the galaxy grew stronger, and the warning signs were impossible to ignore. What had begun as isolated incidents, with humans demonstrating their remarkable technological prowess, quickly turned into a rapid-fire series of advancements that left the galaxy's greatest powers scrambling to catch up. It was no longer just about technology, it was about humanity's unyielding will to conquer and master the universe. And the galaxy was beginning to feel the weight of that ambition. In the heart of the galaxy, on the great floating city of the Imperial Consortium, the galaxy's leaders gathered in a rare, urgent meeting. The council chambers were alive with whispers and tense conversations. What had once been considered a passing threat had now become a force that could change the very fabric of the galaxy. The Araka had been the first to take notice. After their disastrous encounter with the human envoy, they had swiftly made preparations. Their leaders, known for their strategic minds, understood the danger humanity posed, and they were determined to prepare for the worst. The Araka began massing fleets, readying their greatest warriors for what they feared would soon be a war for survival. The Imperial Consortium, on the other hand, had been slow to react. Their leaders were entrenched in bureaucracy, and while they had heard the whispers of humanity's growing influence, they had not taken the threat seriously, that is, until the reports from their scout ships arrived. One such report came from the Uric system, a once bustling trade hub that had seen its fortunes wane as more powerful species rose to prominence. A human ship had entered the system, claiming it as a potential ally and offering its services. At first, the Uric people had been skeptical. But when the human ship revealed its true power, a ship capable of cloaking itself and rendering entire planetary defense systems useless, any doubts vanished. What followed next shocked even the galaxy's most hardened generals. The human ship made a swift, calculated strike against a rival faction's outpost, using weaponry that tore through the enemy's defenses with precision. In a matter of hours, an entire enemy fleet was destroyed, and the Uric system was left under human control. The news spread like wildfire. Humanity was no longer merely a nuisance. They were now a dangerous, unrelenting power, capable of turning the tide of any battle in their favor. The galaxy's leaders were left in stunned silence, realizing that the humans had not just mastered their technology, they had learned to think beyond it, to innovate at a pace that could no longer be ignored. On the edge of known space, the Vaulter, once proud and untouchable, now found themselves in a precarious position. Their once vast influence had crumbled over time, and now they found their way of life threatened by humanity's rapid growth. They, too, had been slow to act, but even they could no longer deny the truth. Humanity had come to stay. In the inner chambers of the Vaulter High Council, a somber meeting was being held. The High Chancellor, an ancient being whose skin shimmered with the faint glow of age, stood before the council. "We are witnessing the beginning of the end," he said. "Humanity's rise is inevitable, and we are too weak to stand against it. They have conquered the stars with nothing but willpower and intelligence. We have only our history and our fading strength." The other council members were silent, their minds racing with the implications of the Chancellor's words. The Vaulter had once been the guardians of knowledge, the custodians of peace. Now they were reduced to spectators, watching as a new, unpredictable power dominated the galaxy. Far from the political centers of the galaxy, on the frontier of human space, the real power of humanity was unfolding. The humans had learned, adapted, and grown in ways that no one could have foreseen. They were building ships not just for exploration, but for warships that could tear through the very fabric of space with their advanced weapons. They were developing technology so advanced that even the elders were left astounded. But it wasn't just their technology that made humanity a force to be reckoned with. It was their ability to unite, to push past their differences and fight for a common cause. Where other species were divided by old grudges and outdated traditions, humanity stood united in their drive for dominance. They fought with everything they had, relentless, unwavering, and unforgiving. In a quiet room aboard a human warship, a commander stood before his crew, his voice firm and resolute. "The galaxy has underestimated us," he said, "but they will soon learn the cost of that mistake. Humanity is not just a species, we are a force of nature, and we will not stop until we have what is ours." The crew, a mix of soldiers, engineers, and civilians, nodded in agreement. They had seen the signs. The old powers were crumbling, and a new age was beginning. But it was not just about conquering, it was about survival. Humanity knew that the galaxy had always been a dangerous place, but now they were ready to face it head-on. In the darkened chambers of the elders, the message was clear. The time for warnings had passed. Humanity's rise was no longer a possibility, it was a certainty. The galaxy was now divided into two factions, the established powers, who would either bend or break under the weight of humanity's ascent, and the humans themselves, who had become a force too powerful to ignore. As the elders observed, they realized the inevitable truth: the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity was on the brink of changing everything, and no one, not even the ancient forces that had once controlled the galaxy, could stop them. A new Erath galaxy had been irrevocably changed, and there was no turning back. What had once been a peaceful, balanced system of species now lay in turmoil. As humanity's influence grew stronger by the day, the old powers, once so confident in their supremacy, were now beginning to fear what they had once dismissed as a passing curiosity. Humanity had proven itself to be not just a new player in the galaxy, but a dominant force capable of rewriting the rules for the first time in centuries. The great empires of the galaxy found themselves uncertain of the future. The Galactic High Council, a body that had once ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, now convened in a state of panic. The council chamber, once a place of calm deliberation, had turned into a battleground of opinions. The leaders of the great galactic factions, the Araka, the Vaulter, and the Quell, argued fiercely over how to respond to humanity's rise. The Araka, known for their might and military prowess, were the first to take action. Their fleets, which had once struck fear into all who dared to cross them, were now placed on high alert. They knew that humanity's power could not be ignored, yet, despite their strength, the Araka were cautious. They had witnessed humanity's ability to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. With their creativity and determination, they were no longer sure that military might alone could stop them. In contrast, the Vaulter, long accustomed to intellectual superiority, initially failed to grasp the full scale of humanity's threat. Their focus on knowledge and diplomacy had kept them out of direct conflicts for centuries. But now their most prized asset, knowledge, seemed inadequate against the relentless tide of humanity's technological advancement. Even their great libraries, containing millennia of wisdom, could offer little more than speculative ideas on how to deal with such an unprecedented power. The Vaulter were forced to face the uncomfortable truth: the galaxy's future might not belong to them. Then there were the Quell, a species known for their neutrality and pragmatic approach to galactic affairs. For years, the Quell had managed to stay out of conflict, thriving in their isolated corner of the galaxy, but they, too, could not escape the ripple effects of humanity's rise. Their once pristine world was now part of humanity's growing influence. The Quell, ever the diplomats, sought to form alliances with the humans, but there was a growing sense of unease among their leaders. The Quell understood the value of balance, but they also recognized that humanity's hunger for power was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Amidst the rising tensions, the humans, unaffected by the uncertainty that plagued the galaxy's established powers, continued to push forward. The human fleets, now equipped with some of the most advanced weaponry ever created, ventured into territories once thought impenetrable. Human engineers and scientists, working day and night, designed ships that could warp through space with unprecedented speed, reaching places that had previously taken years to traverse. The humans were no longer just explorers, they were conquerors, unafraid to take what they wanted. But unlike the empires of the past, they did not simply destroy, they built, reformed, and integrated. Entire worlds, once isolated from one another, were now connected by human ingenuity. They established new colonies, rapidly turning barren planets into thriving hubs of commerce, science, and culture. Humanity's focus was not just on war, but on creating something lasting, a new world order that could only be defined by their unrelenting ambition. The galaxy's power structures were now in chaos. Old alliances began to crumble as new ones were formed. The Imperial Consortium, once the dominant force in galactic politics, struggled to maintain control as its own members became divided. Some factions sought to ally with humanity, recognizing the inevitable shift in power. Others, however, clung to the old ways, believing that they could still outlast the human surge. In the midst of this turbulence, a new leader emerged from the ranks of the humans, Admiral Cassandra Drake, a figure who had quickly risen through the ranks of the military, became the symbol of humanity's might and vision. Her strategic genius and unyielding will had earned her the respect of both her own people and those who had once doubted them. It was said that she could read the movements of enemy fleets before they even made them, predicting their every step with uncanny precision. Drake was not just a military commander. She was a visionary. Under her leadership, humanity's war efforts had been calculated, precise, and devastatingly effective. Yet, what truly set her apart was her ability to unite the disparate factions of humanity. Her charisma and diplomacy, alongside her military prowess, made her the perfect leader for a galaxy in chaos. While some feared her rise, others saw her as the future, the one who could guide humanity to its destiny. Under Admiral Drake's leadership, humanity's expansion was no longer just a possibility, it was a certainty. And it was not just through force that they would conquer the galaxy, it was through unity, intellect, and vision. Humanity had learned the lessons of the past, how power can corrupt, how greed can destroy, and they were determined to avoid repeating those mistakes. Their rise would be different. It would be one of transformation, not just domination. As humanity solidified its hold over more and more systems, the other species of the galaxy were forced to reckon with the new reality. No longer could they ignore the warnings. The elders, watching from their hidden sanctuaries, knew that the time had come. Humanity had entered a new era, one that would define the future of the galaxy for centuries to come. And the question on everyone's mind was no longer whether humanity would rise to power, but whether anyone could stop them. The battle for the future Earth galaxy had now reached the point of no return. What was once an organized and controlled system of civilizations had become a fractured battlefield, with humanity standing at the center. Its rise had shaken the foundations of power, and the great empires and factions were now in a race against time to either destroy humanity or bend to its will. But humanity, under Admiral Cassandra Drake's leadership, was determined to shape the future on their own terms. The first true test of humanity's might came when the Imperial Consortium, once the undisputed leader of galactic politics, declared war on humanity. Their leaders, desperate to maintain their dominance, saw humanity's rapid rise as an existential threat. The Consortium had commanded the galaxy for eons with their vast fleets and impenetrable fortresses, but they were unprepared for the technological and strategic innovations humanity had brought to the table. Admiral Drake, calm and focused, knew that the battle ahead would decide the fate of the galaxy. She had spent years preparing for this moment, studying the Imperial Consortium's weaknesses and their over-reliance on traditional tactics. She had witnessed the Consortium's hubris firsthand, and now it was time to strike. The battle began in the Tiburon Nebula, a region of space known for its dangerous electromagnetic storms. The Consortium, overconfident in their superiority, sent their fleet into the nebula, hoping to use its cover to their advantage. But Drake had already anticipated this move. She knew the Consortium's fleet would be slow to adapt to the chaos of the nebula, and that's when humanity's advantage would become clear. Humanity's fleet, faster and more adaptable than anything the Consortium had ever faced, entered the nebula with ease. The storm that had once been a barrier now served as a tool for human ingenuity. Their ships, equipped with advanced cloaking devices and neural-guided weapons, moved like shadows through the storm, striking with precision and power. The Consortium's fleet, on the other hand, floundered in the electromagnetic chaos, their sensors malfunctioning and their command structures in disarray. Drake's fleet struck hard and fast. The Consortium's massive dreadnoughts, built to withstand any attack, crumpled under the onslaught of humanity's new weaponry: laser-guided plasma cannons, kinetic disruptors, and ionized plasma torpedoes. The once imposing warships were torn apart in moments, their once feared power rendered meaningless against humanity's innovation. But the true brilliance of humanity's victory lay not just in their weaponry, but in their strategy. Where other fleets would have been blinded by their initial success, humanity adapted. Admiral Drake ordered her ships to retreat into the storm after the first wave, luring the Consortium's remaining forces deeper into the chaos. As the Consortium pursued, they unknowingly walked into a trap, and the second wave of human forces emerged from the storm to finish the job. The battle was swift. The Consortium, despite their overwhelming numbers, had been completely outclassed by humanity's speed, intelligence, and adaptability. When the final explosions lit up the nebula, the Consortium's once proud fleet was no more. The victory sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Humanity, once thought to be a mere nuisance, had now obliterated one of the most powerful empires the galaxy had ever seen. The news of humanity's victory spread quickly, and the galaxy was left in stunned silence. The once unshakable Imperial Consortium was no more, and humanity stood victorious. But the victory came at a price. As the Consortium's fleets fell, the galaxy's power structures collapsed into chaos. Old alliances fractured, and the power vacuum left in the wake of the Consortium's fall was vast. The remaining galactic factions, feeling the pressure of humanity's relentless rise, began to take sides. Some sought peace with the humans, while others, particularly the Araka, saw this as an opportunity to crush humanity before it grew even stronger. In the midst of this turmoil, humanity was not just securing their power, they were building for the future. On the war-torn worlds they now controlled, human engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to rebuild and expand. Cities that had once been razed to the ground were now being rebuilt with humanity's advanced technology, turning them into thriving, prosperous hubs of commerce, culture, and science. Admiral Drake, however, knew that the battle was far from over, though the consortium had been defeated. The galaxy was not yet ready to accept humanity's new order. The Araka, desperate to maintain their dominance, were massing their fleets on the borders of human space. The Vaulter, too, had begun to form alliances with the remaining factions, hoping to put a stop to humanity's meteoric rise. Drake, ever the strategist, knew that the next battle would be even more dangerous. The Araka's military might could not be underestimated, and their fleet was far larger than the consortium's. But Drake had something the Araka did not: unity and determination. Humanity had proven itself to be unstoppable, and under Drake's leadership, they were ready to face whatever the galaxy could throw at them. As humanity prepared for the next stage of the war, the question remained: could the galaxy's remaining powers stand against humanity's relentless advance? Or had they already witnessed the beginning of a new era, one where humanity, not empires or alliances, would shape the galaxy's future? The answer was coming, and it would determine not just the fate of humanity, but of every living species in the galaxy. The legacy of humanitide war had shattered the galaxy. What was once a vibrant, thriving collection of powerful empires and peaceful alliances now lay in ruins. A fragmented universe struggling to rebuild. But through all the chaos, one undeniable truth had emerged: humanity was here to stay, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Cassandra Drake stood on the observation deck of the flagship Endurance, gazing out at the stars. Her fleet, victorious but battered, had secured humanity's place at the center of the galaxy. The battle with the Imperial Consortium had been a defining moment, but it was far from the end. Humanity's power was growing stronger by the day, but with that power came an immense responsibility. The galaxy was not ready for such a dramatic shift in power, and humanity's rise would either heal the rift or tear everything apart. The war with the Consortium had brought unity to humanity finally. All factions, from the once divided colonies to the distant frontier worlds, were working together. But unity came with its own set of challenges. Humanity's newly formed government, a council of the strongest military leaders, influential politicians, and civilian representatives, was still fragile. Many species from across the galaxy were still hesitant, unwilling to accept humanity's dominance. The Araka, furious at their defeat, had begun to rally their fleets once more, while the Vaulter and Quell were making secret alliances to form a coalition against humanity's ever-expanding reach. But the true cost of the war had not yet fully manifested. Admiral Drake knew that as long as humanity continued to push forward with unchecked aggression, they risked becoming what they had once fought against: another empire, blind to its own power, consumed by greed and the desire for control. She knew they had to do things differently. Humanity had won, but the true battle for the galaxy's future was just beginning. In a private meeting with the council, Drake voiced her concerns: "We've won, but we've also made enemies, many enemies. If we don't move carefully, we'll be just another empire that falls because it believed its power was enough to last forever. We need to build alliances, foster trust, and most importantly, we need to prove to the galaxy that humanity is different. We are not conquerors, we are liberators, and that's how we'll be remembered." The council was silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Drake's leadership had brought humanity this far, but now she faced the most delicate task of all: leading them into a future where their legacy would be defined not just by war, but by the choices they made after the dust settled. On the edge of human-controlled space, a group of diplomats and emissaries worked tirelessly to negotiate peace with the remaining factions. These new alliances would be key to the galaxy's future. Humanity was no longer just a force to be reckoned with, it was becoming a symbol of hope for those oppressed by the old powers. But not all were willing to follow humanity's path. The Araka, with their warrior culture, rejected the idea of peace and sought to reclaim their position of power through force. The Quell, always the pragmatists, were willing to cooperate, but with conditions that tested humanity's resolve. The Vaulter, once the guardians of knowledge, now had their own ambitions to reshape the galaxy, and they saw humanity as both a threat and an opportunity. As these factions scrambled to secure their futures, something unexpected happened. A new group, composed of outcasts from many species, those who had been oppressed by the old galactic powers, began to form a resistance. They called themselves the Reclaimers, and their goal was simple: to ensure that the new era, whatever it looked like, would be one of equality and shared resources, not the dominance of any one species over another. They had seen what humanity was capable of, and while they admired the strength and resolve, they feared the rise of another empire, even one led by humans. Admiral Drake, aware of this new movement, knew that the coming years would not be easy. There were many who feared what humanity represented both as a conqueror and a potential liberator. The galaxy was on the edge of a new era, but it was uncertain whether this would be a time of prosperity or strife. In a moment of quiet reflection, Drake thought about her own journey. She had started as a commander of a small fleet, fighting for survival, and now she stood at the helm of a new empire. Her legacy was no longer just about military victories. It was about how she would guide humanity's future. Would they remain a symbol of hope, or would they, too, become a cautionary tale of power and ambition? The stars stretched out before her, a vast and untamed expanse. Full of both opportunity and danger, humanity had proven itself capable of anything, of surviving against all odds, of overcoming what others thought impossible. But the true test would be in how they wielded that power. Would they create a galaxy where every species had a voice, or would they silence their enemies, becoming the very thing they had fought to destroy? As humanity's new role in the galaxy became clearer, Admiral Drake knew one thing for certain. This was not just a fight for power, it was a fight for the soul of the galaxy. The next chapter of history would be written not by the battles they fought, but by the choices they made in the aftermath. It was time for humanity to decide what kind of legacy they wanted to leave behind.